Hello, everybody. It's been a while. Very glad to be back. Um, Still sort of figuring out the lighting situation. I have a mirror back here now. I don't know if you can actually see it at all, or if it's helping at all. Um, Probably try and figure that out a little bit more next time. But uh, yeah, we're finally ready to start flying this stuff, which is actually slightly a lie because I found two tiny bits of fiber left. These, so I'm gonna really quickly spin them um, onto this bobbin, just to add the last little bit. But then we will start flying. Um, I'm really excited to get this project done because I've got some ideas for new projects that should be pretty fun. Yeah. So this little bit that I'm currently spinning is just it's just a tiny bit of hand-combed Jacob's fleece, which the rest of the bobbin is also Jacob's fleece, but it's from a different fleece. It's from a much older fleece, um, whereas this tiny little nest is from a lamb. And it's very beautiful and soft. And if I remember correctly, I combed it so that I could see how fine I could get on some supported spindles, and I never actually ended up finishing that tiny little experiment. So I figure why not put that in here. It's the same color too, so that kind of helps. I do think we're definitely not gonna have like an even amount on this bobbin versus the rest of it. So part of it's gonna be like gray and brown barber pole, and then the other part is just gonna be brown. But again, this is for a cat bed, so I really don't think she's gonna care at all. The other part of the cat bed, by the way, because I was thinking like I either wanted to stuff it or I wanted to just add something to like to this yarn as a base probably. And the other part of it is actually like a bunch of, what's the word? I cut off the hem of the leg of all of my boxer briefs because it was really bugging me. And so now I have all these little loops of cotton, and I realized that actually I could cut those and then braid them into a nice sort of rug, and then I could use that rug as the base for this. So yeah, considering it's going to be paired with literally underwear fabric, standards are pretty low. They often are with me anyway. All right, now we're just finishing up. This is just like a tiny bit of the original CVM that must have fallen to the wayside when I was spinning the stuff earlier. I don't really have any use for a tiny bit of CVM other than to put it in the scrap bag. And I don't know where the scrap bag is, so we're just gonna spin it. I think it's been about a month since I last streamed, and it's also been about a month since I last spun. And I've definitely missed it. I think after this, I'm going to try and free up my e-spinner, because that definitely needs to be done. Because I think I can probably e-spin a little bit easier than I can spin on a wheel with a treadle. So yeah, just trying to free up my options. After I do that, I made an interesting choice very late at night online, which is typically not a good time to be buying things. I bought a pair of cotton carders and 2 pounds of ginned cotton. The cotton carders, I know why I bought. I've been wanting them for a long time. And I figure, like, might as well do it now. Um, Somebody very kindly sent me some money and told me to buy whatever the hell I wanted. So I was like, okay, cotton carders, I want those. But then the 2 pounds of ginned cotton, why did I do that? That's so much cotton. I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever be able to spin all of that. But I really want to try. And I do really love cotton spinning. And it's about to be summer, which is the best time for cotton spinning. So, yeah. I don't think I'll be spinning that on my wheel, though. We'll see if I can manage it, because it'll definitely be faster than spinning it on a supported spindle. By my math, it's about 30% faster for me. But the tension is it's really hard to get the tension right on this particular wheel for something as delicate as cotton spinning. Hello, welcome back. Have I ever spun cotton? Yeah, it's probably one of the fibers I'm less practiced with. Well, I don't know. I've spent some time spinning it in the last year or so, and I got to the point where I could spin a single fine enough that it fit in the groove of my fingerprints, which I was pretty impressed by. And I'm still pretty proud of that. So I have definitely spun some cotton, but I haven't ever done like a big cotton hand spun project or anything like that. I've worked with, just standard cotton yarn, and I didn't like it very much. Mostly because the stuff that I can find around here is mercerized and a very different beast from hand spun unmercerized cotton. So I kind of want to make a summer blanket with it or something like that. I've made some cotton summer blankets in the past, and they're really lovely. And I bet a hand spun one would be even nicer. But yeah, I've spun some cotton. I wouldn't call myself an experienced cotton spinner by any means, but I am proficient enough to get the job done. Which is why it's baffling to me that I bought 2 pounds of it. Because proficient enough to get the job done does not equal able to spin 2 pounds of it easily. But I'm kind of banking on the idea that when I actually get a pair of cotton cards, I'll be able to make poonies that are much better than what I can make on my normal 70 TPI cotton cards, or 70 TPI all-purpose cards rather. And I think that's going to help a lot more. I don't really know how to describe it, but the main difficulty with cotton is that it wants to fall apart because the fibers don't stick to themselves at all, really. Especially not compared to wool or even something like linen. They don't stick to themselves. Whereas if you're able to get them to sort of stick to themselves via mechanical means, like via friction, then you're going to have a much easier time spinning it, and you can probably put it under more tension. So I'm hoping that I can do it like that. If I do it on actual cotton cards and make some decent poonies, then I will be able to spin it on my wheel. We'll have to see. That's impressive. Thank you. It took a while, and I'm still very pleased with it. Just gonna have a bit of my drink real quick. So that's the end of the spinning. Now we're on to the plying. So one thing I definitely need to do is free up one of these bobbins, because I only have 3 bobbins and I'm doing a 3-ply, I think. I'm pretty sure I planned on a 3-ply. Yeah, was definitely going to do a 3-ply. So I need to wind one of these onto something else. Probably wind it onto this. I'll try and be quick about it. I know it's not exactly the most fascinating thing to watch in the world. But if you're ever wondering how to do a 3-ply with 3 different plies when you only have 3 bobbins and like you don't have anything to ply on, you can just wind it off onto something else, such as in this case a electric spinning wheel bobbin, and that'll be fine. Might be a stupid question, but you don't wet spin that one, right? Not a stupid question at all. No, the one that you wet spin is flax / linen, same thing. I feel like if you tried to wet spin cotton, what would happen is you would just end up with cotton fluff all over your hands, and it would be terrible. So yeah, you definitely want your hands to be nice and dry. I've even found that like putting on lotion or something right before cotton spinning causes it to totally stick to my hands, to the point where it makes it impossible to add twist. So yeah, nice dry hands is preferable for cotton. But honestly, like, I do also think that over the course of my flax spinning, I've learned that like it looks better. It definitely looks a lot better if you can wet spin it. But functionally, after they've both received some wear, they're both equally soft, and they tend to look pretty similar. I think that probably only changes when you get down to like really fine flax spinning, which I have done some of, but not much. And that I only have ever wet spun. Like I think the sticky out bits, which is what you're trying to avoid when you wet spin linen, those are way more of a problem when it's like thread weight than when it's much thicker. And the majority of my flax spinning has actually been a very thick flax yarn, which I don't recommend at all. Worst mistake ever. I spun like, I don't know, almost a kilo, so like over 2 pounds of flax as a pretty thick, maybe like a worsted weight 2-ply, which for flax, that's really thick. You don't usually see it that thick. And I didn't know that there was a reason for that, but there is. The reason is it'll totally shred your hands. That project took me like years and years because I would keep destroying my hands and then have to wait for my skin to recover and then do it again. So I'm glad I'm not still stuck in that cycle. But yeah, if you ever take up flax spinning, it's supposed to be thin for a reason. And that reason is for the sake of your hands. You've spun flax only once, not wet. It wasn't great, but you're not sure if your fiber was bad or if it was you. To be honest, it was probably your fiber, especially if you got flax like roving. Like if you ever see flax sold in a roving put up, that almost guarantees it's not going to be great flax. Like you want line flax or flax strick if you want to be able to spin it fine. You want flax strick, and the difference is that flax strick has been combed out so that all of the tow, the short, coarser fibers have been removed. Whereas with roving, they are not removed, or at least not all of them are removed. And so you're basically spinning the line and the tow at once, and it makes a very uneven, lumpy, kind of scratchy yarn. So if that describes your flax, then it's definitely the fiber and it's not you. You can make some beautiful flax yarn with roving, but it takes some skill and some practice, and often it takes some recombing. Yeah, it was roving. Yeah, that'd probably be why. There's also the fact that flax is like, if you learned by spinning wool, flax is just so different. Like, I remember when I was first trying out flax, I'd been spinning wool for, I don't know, maybe like 4 years. And I was definitely comfortable spinning wool, and I thought that that would translate over to spinning flax. And it didn't at all. Like, it took so long to even get a passable few yards worth because it would just keep breaking, and then I didn't really understand how to reattach it for quite a while. I had the same issue with cotton, really. But yeah, if your first skein is all like that, don't be so hard on yourself. It's the fiber is not very good, and additionally, there's a steep learning curve for flax, and for cotton. I think there's a steep learning curve for all spinning, but wool is definitely easier to learn on, in my Western opinion, I suppose. Because there's very much people who have learned on cotton and maybe even grew up spinning cotton and find it the easiest thing in the world to spin. I'm just not one of them. I do wonder if people who grow up spinning exclusively cotton have the same problem with wool that somebody who grew up spinning wool has spinning cotton. I wonder if it works both ways. I kind of think it might not. I think wool is just inherently sort of a more obliging fiber to spin. Oof, there we go. That took a little while. All right, so we transferred the pretty meager amount that was on this bobbin to this bobbin. So what now? I guess now we just start plying. So other than those two bobbins, I've also got, where are they? Yes, I've also got these spindles. So we'll switch to the spindles. That's not supposed to be in there. We'll switch to the spindles once I've used up all the bobbins, I think. Just because I'd rather wrangle with them at the end when I've gotten a bit more warmed up. We might have to adjust the speed. I don't usually let my fiber rest for a month / multiple months in the case of the older spun stuff. That's not really how I roll. So I'm not really sure how this is going to work out, actually, because it's quite different from how I usually do it. We'll see, though. All right. I'll just gather up our singles. So I was reviewing some of the last stream just to sort of get caught up again. And apparently I spun the gray stuff, I spun it the other way. Like I twisted it the other way, so it's going to be an opposing 3-ply. Which means when I run out of this, it's going to suddenly not be an opposing 3-ply, and it's going to be a normal 3-ply, which is not something I had considered until right when I started the stream. I'm really curious how that's going to go. I foresee it being a little wonky, but otherwise fine. Like, this isn't something I would do on a sweater or a pair of socks or something where structural integrity and appearances matter. But as an experimental piece, it's whatever. It's fine. All right. Oh, I should also oil it, shouldn't I? It both feels like I just finished spinning all these bobbins and like I haven't spun in several years, neither of which is true. So I'm kind of playing some mental gymnastics here, remembering what stuff I need to be doing. All right. So I think we're playing it this way. Let's see how it looks. Yeah, that looks about right. Once I get a little more, I'll see if I can show it to the camera. I'm not sure how much you can really see that, but looks all right to me. You have no middle ground between plying immediately or forgetting the singles for months. Yeah, that's fair. Especially once you have like multiple spindles or multiple modes of spinning, it is so easy to just get caught up in other projects. Or in my case, I was really just doing a lot of knitting. All right. Yeah, I don't think it's gonna cause any huge problems. If it were like, if I were gonna run out of both of the bobbins that are S twisted and only had the Z twisted, and then had to use the Z twist for all of it, that I think would cause a problem. But I'm gonna run out of the Z twisted, and then I'll have only S twisted, and I think that's fine. I think it won't really be noticeable. We'll have to see. It looks nice, thank you. It's pretty soft in the hand too. I didn't think it would be as soft as it is. And I really, because it's so dusty. Like I can both feel and see and kind of smell the dust coming off of this because I never did wash it. So that's the spinning wheel noises I've missed so much for the last month or so. Now that I'm looking at this, I'm really obviously going to need multiple bobbins, like for plying. So I guess we'll have to wind it off onto the Nitty Naughty once we fill up the first one. It should be fine. I wonder how much we're going to get to. Like there's not that much fiber by weight, but I did spin it off fairly fine. I think the barber pulling is coming through in an interesting way. The gray isn't that different of a color. Like it's sort of the same warmth, and it's not much darker. So it's not like, it doesn't stand out a ton. At least in this light. I'm sure it'll look different in other light, but it's looking nice. There have been a couple of times where I tried a barber pole with two colors that I totally thought would match, and then was just devastated by the results. So I'm glad this is not one of those. I think the main time that happened was when I had blended this really beautiful bat that was like green and a little bit of gold, a little bit of black. I think I called it the dragon egg bat because it really looked like it looked like a dragon egg. It looked sick, and I loved it. And it was beautiful, and I spun it, and it was still beautiful. And then I was like, okay, I don't want to self-ply it because I want to preserve what little yardage I have. Because it was only like a 1 ounce bat. It was pretty tiny. So I plied it with some white, I don't know, Corriedale or something. And the white just completely washed out absolutely everything about it. Like it was unrecognizable as the same yarn. And it looked okay. Like it didn't, it's not that it looked bad, but it didn't look fantastic like the singles had originally. And that is when I learned that The colors that you ply with really matter. That was probably like, I don't know, maybe my second or third wheel spin. So I would have been spinning for a little while, a couple of years on drop spindles before that, but I pretty much only self-plied on drop spindles, just due to lack of spindles mostly. Yeah, I definitely got a lot more adventurous and experimental once I got a wheel. Because I think the fact that you can produce yarn so much faster means that it's not, like, your time isn't quite as valuable anymore. Or maybe that's not the right way to say it. Maybe it's more like, because it takes less time, you have more time to just sort of fuck around and figure out what happens. You only did that with natural brown and beige wool. It ended up looking oddly edible. Yeah, that sounds about right. I really like sheep browns. Like, there's such a good kind of brown. In the same way that I like dirt browns and I like tree browns. I have good browns out there. And I do think like a nice dark brown, light brown barber pole is really, it gives you such a beautiful heathered effect when you actually turn it into an object. It's always a treat. Trying to alternate taking sips of my drink with every time I move the yarn to the next hook, because I've noticed in my last streams I keep forgetting to drink stuff, and then I'll either have to sit there and gulp water for a couple seconds or just have a super good mouth the whole time. So trying to improve the process slightly. But if you see me pausing every time I change the hook and doing nothing, that is why. You didn't know spinning would do that to you, but you fell in love with lots of browns and yellows. Underrated colors. That's so true. I feel exactly the same way. Especially like once I got into natural dyeing as well. I don't think I ever got excited about a sort of like off puke green color ever in my life before I started naturally dyeing. And then like it turns out there's like any color at all other than sort of a muddy brown, and even then that can be hard to get. Any color at all is hard to get, and it's an accomplishment when you get a new color. And so I would be like looking at what most people would probably objectively describe as very ugly colors and be like over the moon and just really appreciating their beauty. And that has not changed at all. Like, honestly, I think I'm at the point where there's almost no colors that I dislike other than maybe magenta. I'm really not a magenta fan. But even then, like, pokeberries are magenta, and they're quite pretty. It's just funny, because when I was a kid, I was so picky about color. I only liked, like, 2 colors. And all the other ones I was very anti. We plan to try natural dyeing soon. We're on an onion batch cooking mission with a friend tomorrow for the skins. Oh, that's awesome. Good luck. I hope it goes well. Also, just a pro tip, you can usually find a ton more onion skins in like the onion bin or wherever they're being, like whatever container they're sitting in, where they're being sold. You can usually find a ton of extra skins at the bottom. And I sometimes will buy one onion and then like 20 onions worth of skins. So you can get even more that way if you haven't already done that. But that's super exciting. Onion is such a good first dye material, and it makes such beautiful colors. Very excited for you. I hope it goes well. That was probably one of my first. I think it actually might have been my first dye material as well. If not the first, then very, very close. Okay, so that's that tiny purple bobbin done. And shockingly, the Plying bobbin is already like a third of the way full. It's empty, which is way faster than I thought. So we might have to wind this off multiple times even. So now what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to still be working from these two bobbins, that one and that one, which is already almost empty. But I'm also going to pick one of these and just work with them one at a time, basically unrolling them. I have a bowl at my feet that I'm going to stick this one in. I think we're going to do this guy first for no particular reason at all. Sometimes this can be a huge pain in the ass, and sometimes it can be totally fine. So we'll see what it feels like being today. Really all depends. Okay. Oh, you're going to want to up the tension too. All right. Okay, it's behaving so far. And now it's not behaving. Okay. It just like flew up into the air and is just dangling. Not really what I want. Let's see what I can do. There have been a couple of times where I was plying off of 4 spindles at once, and that was a pain. So I'm pretty confident I can handle 1 spindle, but even 1 spindle can be a pain. I imagine that most like cottage spinners, before spinning wheels were invented, had some pretty decent custom setups so that they could make like nice ply balls or something off of their spindles. Because I can imagine this would drive you mad pretty fast if you don't. That's not too bad though. I think the main trick is always just to be patient. Like as soon as you start getting annoyed at your yarn, especially if it's tangling and you start getting annoyed at your yarn, that is when you just got to take a step back and come back to it later. And as long as you do that, it's difficult to cause too many problems. I've actually got some yarn on the stove at the moment. While you're here, can you ask a spindle question? Yes, always. What's your spindle question? Just got a tiny bit of a curl in here I want to sort out. I think it's a curl. It's either a curl or it's some VM, and my eyesight is not good enough to tell which. VM. Okay. Yeah, the spindle's definitely behaving now. I find that, like, if you leave specifically on supported spindles, which is what I'm using, if you leave the working cop, like the very top part on there, that part is always going to be a pain when you start plying. And it actually is worth it to wind it all down onto the main cop, which has not ever stopped me from not doing that, but it's fine. You recently got a supported spindle, and so far you turned out unable to make your wool make yarn around it. You've heard it's normal to have trouble. Do I have tips? Yeah, it is normal to have trouble with that. I think that's like the classic first issue that you're going to run into with supported spinning. I would say my tip, well, there's a couple tips. The first is that you're going to have an easier time making the yarn wind around it if the yarn is already winding around it, by which I mean, like, either start with a nice long leader or sort of hand twist a good, even like a meter is a pretty good amount, and then just wind that along the shaft of the spindle. And that way it's already securely anchored. Because if you just like tie a slip knot and attach it at the base and then start spinning, it's going to be kind of unruly, especially when you're new. So that would be one tip. Another tip, hang on, my spindle fell out of the bowl. Let's see. Another tip is, like, if you're having trouble with everything, like you can barely even get it to spin, you probably just need a better bowl, or not even a better bowl, but a different bowl, because not every spindle will work with every bowl. And sometimes even the bowl that they send when you buy a spindle and bowl set is not going to work for that particular spindle. It happens. So if you're having trouble with everything, maybe experiment with some other bowls. And then the last tip is that it's all in the angle. Like when you're winding on, hang on, let me grab my spindle so I can demonstrate. So when you're winding on, you want the yarn to be held pretty much horizontal as you wind on. But then when you're spinning, you want to be holding the yarn much more at an angle. There we go, much more like this. And that will actually make it twirl around. So you want it, it's not totally vertical, it's not straight up, but it's close to straight up. And you kind of have to adjust the angle at which you are holding your yarn, depending on whether you want to wind it on or whether you're trying to just add twist to it. Hopefully that helps a little bit. I feel like it can take a while. It's a very different spinning tool than a drop spindle. Like it uses momentum differently, it's handled differently, and it's a lot faster too, which can be kind of disarming because drop spindles honestly tend to be pretty slow unless you have a really small one. So yeah, don't be discouraged. Personally, I found I had to fill up my entire supported spindle a couple of times before I actually felt comfortable with what I was doing. And that might be necessary for you too. I also really recommend, if you haven't already, just watching various videos of people spinning on supported spindles. It doesn't have to be the same kind of supported spindle. Like, just watch their technique, like watch what they're doing with their hands, watch how they hold it, watch how it rests. And that'll give you some ideas for how to do it yourself more effectively. That helped me quite a lot when I was learning. You run into issues you didn't consider with having to support it while spinning it, while having fiber not moving. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's another thing. If you can sort of make like a little circle with your hands like this and have the head of or the tip of the spindle like resting and sort of rotating in that circle. That way it won't fall. It'll fall against your hand, but it won't fall like off the table or it won't fall off the bowl and potentially snap the tip. And it also won't fall as far. And that can help a lot too. One major word of advice is that the tip of the supported spindle is incredibly weak, incredibly fragile. It's always going to be the thing that breaks first. And it's easy to break even just like having it in your bag. You look at it wrong, it can break in some cases. So definitely protect the spindle tip at all costs. If you can wrap it up with something while you're storing it, all the better. You watch videos a lot. You're initially not great in spatial stuff, so that helps. Yeah, I get that. I feel like I always have to sort of figure out, like, okay, and now how does the human body move? Like every time I try some new thing. I feel like with spinning especially, I'm an incredibly slow study, which is funny because I also, like, and this isn't a brag, but I'm a fairly accomplished spinner. I've been spinning a while. I've spun some pretty damn good things. And it took me so long to get there. Like, I was so bad when I started. And every time I try something new, I am so bad at it all over again. It's pretty humbling, honestly. Like, because every time I try something new, I'm like, oh yeah, I am not the greatest. I just remembered. But that's a good thing, though. I feel like if it was easy every time, I would actually get pretty bored. The fact that it's difficult makes it more interesting. we're almost done with this first spindle's worth. And we're also almost done with the Jacob. The Jacob is really dwindling fast. I imagine I'm going to have to do a Plying bracelet just to sort of finish everything off at some point. We'll have to see. Here's that last little bit on this spindle. I love this spindle so much. This is one of my favorite spindles ever. It's incredibly wonky and ugly, and it's like the second one I ever made myself, and it's also one of the best ones. Like, it spins the best, which has really annoyed me. Because I've now made, like, I don't know, maybe like 40 or 50 spindles. Not any in a while, but I've made a lot. And that one is just so perfect. And all the other ones have been, like, just not quite as good. It's a very funny problem to have. Beginner's luck. Learning from scratch is the best part and also the worst at times. Yeah, that's exactly right. All right, on to the next bobbin. Hopefully my cat will not make too many horrible noises. I can see her in the mirror. She definitely looks like she's about to make more horrible noises. I gave her a treat and everything because she was all wound up before I started the stream. So I started a little late because I was giving her a treat. And I was like, maybe now she'll be chill. But I should have known better. She's never chill. Hi, Chuck. She's arrived. There's her tail. That's a lot of spindles. It is a lot of spindles. I broke most of them. That's why I kept making them, is because I kept breaking them. And I've also sold, I probably sold like a dozen of them and given maybe another dozen away to friends. And then I have about 10 myself right now, which means I've broken about 30 irreparably, or so many times that they are no longer repairable. Because like the tip is always what breaks first, so I'll always start by like basically redoing the tip, moving it down the shaft so that it's shorter but has a tip again. You can only do that so many times. It's Chuck, what are you doing? Sort of like sharpening a pencil forever. Eventually you just have a nub at the end. And it's not going to do anything. So I've done that to many, many spindles. I'm a master spindle breaker more than anything else. I will say it's very fun to carve spindles, though. I can't do it anymore because my hands are pretty shot, but back when I could, like, definitely a really enjoyable activity. I always loved whittling, so maybe I'm just partial to it, but if you ever have the opportunity to whittle yourself some spindles, I recommend. This bobbin is almost full enough for me to wind it off. I kind of want to see if I can finish up the Jacob, because I like it's gonna have a weird transition otherwise. There's gonna be some odd stripes, which isn't the end of the world, but preferably I will try and finish off this Jacob before I wind it. onto the nitty naughty and keep spinning. We'll have to see. I just realized the spinning wheel has been at a terrible angle the whole time. Oops. Woodworking is one of the things you want to learn. Yeah, it's very fun. Whittling is a form of woodworking, as far as I understand it. I am not a woodworker, but I was previously a whittler. And really, I think the only difference is that whittling, you're just using a knife and maybe some sandpaper or something like that. You're not using any other machines, really. Maybe a saw. I don't know. But like woodworking, like that's where you have like hammers and bandsaws and like jigs to cut with and that sort of thing. I never really got into that just because all of those tools are really expensive. But whittling tools are pretty cheap. So I got started just using like a $10 box cutter and some sandpaper, and that actually is all you need. So I think you can maybe even see Chuck and her little couch through the spinning wheel. I actually can't tell if that's Chuck or if it's something else. I'm pretty sure it's Chuck. I'm getting to the point where I kind of am worried about adding more to the bobbin because I really don't want to have to detangle if it jumps the hook. So I think what I'm going to do is just snap it. Just attach, or not attach, but wind this so that it doesn't immediately lose all of its twist. Maybe just make a slip knot with the loose ends and put that in place, and then come on, cooperate. There we go. Yeah, we're definitely gonna have to do this a couple of times to get all of this spun, which is absolutely fine. Hopefully I can ply it all tonight. That is the dream, because I'm gonna get started on other projects. So, and I'd like to make this cat bed before it gets too hot, but I think we're well past that. So I do still want to get it done ASAP though. Just extricating my nitty naughty. Hang on. Sorry about that. All right. A box cutter works? Yes, very much so. The only thing is that a box cutter is not, box cutter is not the nicest thing in your hands. So you might want to start with like an actual whittling knife if you have the means to do so, just for the sake of your hands. But I've compared my hand-forged, beautiful Ukrainian whittling knife to my $10 Home Depot box cutter, and the result is the same. Like, they can both make exactly as beautiful or as terrible of spindles. It's just that the actual whittling knife is just more pleasant to use. And it's resharpenable, whereas a box cutter is not sharpenable. You have to throw away the blades when they get dull, and that does happen pretty fast. But yeah, you can 100% use a box cutter with no problems. really more important than the tool that you're using is the wood that you pick. Because if you pick something like oak, you're going to be there all day. Whereas if you pick something like maybe like a fruit tree wood, I find that ornamental plum trees, I don't know if you have those in your area, but we have tons of them here. And they have a really nice, beautiful wood that's nice and soft, and also usually has a decent amount of spalting in it, which is pretty. So that adds to the appearance of the spindle. Or birch is another really, like, it doesn't produce very durable spindles, but it's really easy to carve spindles out of. And it also tends to have nice spalting. So birch is a really good option, especially because birch trees are usually like pretty visually identifiable, even just from a stick on the ground. You can often tell it's birch because the bark is so distinct. So yeah, if you have access to birch or something like that, a box cutter is definitely good enough, and some sanding equipment ideally. But that's not necessary if you really don't have it. It'll just make the actual spinning process nicer. Here's what the yarn looks like, by the way. God, my webcam is so bad. I'm sorry about that. But it's nice and like, I don't know. I don't know how to describe it, but I like it. It's still very dusty. I don't like the dustiness, but I'm like 99% sure I can get all the dustiness off without a problem, so it should be fine. It should be totally fine. And it's really like spongy, maybe that's the right word. I am a big fan of spongy yarns, so, and my cat is also a big fan of spongy yarns, which is kind of more important because it's going to be for her bed, so. So I'd say we are maybe halfway done. I think less than halfway. And I also think that the second part of this is going to be a bit more labor intensive. Because as soon as I run out of that Jacob, I'm going to have to do a bit of a plying bracelet on the remainder of that big bobbin so that we still have 3 plies. And I don't know about everyone else, but I personally find it slightly harder to spin, or to ply rather, from a plying bracelet than from other means. I think it's just something about like you have to coordinate your wrist movements and the treadling and your hands, and the take-up has to be perfect, and it can tangle. And all those things are a little bit much for me sometimes. Not that it tends to cause problems, it usually just slows me down. So we will see. There's also the consideration that I am wearing a very necessary compression cuff on my hand right now. And it's the hand that I usually wind plying bracelets around. I think it'll be fine. Typically I take it off for this, like to wind a ply bracelet, but my wrist hurts so bad. I really don't want to do that. So I'm going to leave it on and we're going to see what happens. Okay. Nope. Almost dropped it. So far we've got this, which is pretty good. I am going to hazard a guess that this is around 60 yards. And I'm not going to count, so there's actually no way to know if I'm correct. But that's my guess, 60 yards. And now, So we've got a bit left of the Jacob. And then, yeah, I'll be doing that Plying bracelet immediately. Get it all going again. I think I'm going to switch to the other foot, at least briefly. Oh my god, my hands are so dusty right now. It's not even funny. You like bracelets for the fact that you can do them everywhere, but you don't use a wheel. Yeah, honestly, that's the big thing, is that, like, if you're using a Plying bracelet on a drop spindle, it doesn't cause many problems because it's already at a slower speed. Like, so it's sort of like the speed at which you're applying matches the speed at which you can easily unwind it from your wrist. Whereas on a spinning wheel, you're flying along way faster on this. At least this is how it is for me. I'm flying around way faster on the wheel than I am able to unwind from my wrist. So I don't tend to like it for that reason. And I tend to go for ply balls, to the point where I will do a Plying bracelet and then wind it off the Plying bracelet into a ply ball just to have an easier time flying sometimes. The only issue with that is that it does double the winding, which is kind of hard on my wrist. So I'm certainly not doing that today. I do love Plying bracelets, though. They're a very cool thing. And I have to wonder, like, I mean, watching them, like, just watching my own hands make a Plying bracelet, even though I completely understand the motions and what exactly is going on here, even knowing that, it's a very cool thing to watch and to do. Like, it feels almost ritualistic in a way. And I kind of wonder, like, how that was discovered. I know that they're typically called Andean Plying bracelets. I have no idea if that's, like, if they're, Peruvian in nature, if we just gave them that name, because that does happen. But whoever came up with them is very resourceful, especially as a way to use up scrap. I love Plying bracelets as a way to use up scrap. They're unparalleled. Okay. Right, I was gonna switch feet. I don't want to make it so that you can't see. I never really know what you're interested in looking at, whether it's the wheel or whether it's really more about the sound and the commentary. I have no idea, honestly. But let me know if it's pointed at a part of the wheel that is very boring to watch, and I will happily readjust the camera. Oh, it's way easier already. It's witchcraft. Yeah, it does look like it. I'm really excited to get to work with a prep that doesn't super fucking suck, which might sound a little harsh, but I'm very over this incredibly badly prepared bat. I will be very pleased to no longer be working with it. Like, it's not that my preps are perfect, they're definitely not, but I get the feeling that the person who made the bat is not a spinner and thus does not understand like the pitfalls that they were falling into, and how that makes spinning it a lot harder, which is kind of too bad because it's a beautiful fiber, but the preparation is just like there's nothing you could do with it. You just have to spin it, and it's just going to be terrible. I don't know. That's a lot of complaining for a yarn that ultimately I'm liking a lot, but spinning it was a pain. You like when you can see my hands. Okay, that's doable. That one can be a little difficult because I know my hands do migrate, no matter how hard I try, but I shall. Well, let me take a drink first, but let's see how this is afterwards. Yes. If I ever come up with a way of spinning that seems like it's sustainable for me, given my medical conditions, then I am definitely going to invest in a much better webcam and probably a microphone that is better than what I have, because I feel kind of bad about the quality of the streams. There's not really anything I can do about it short of spending quite a bit of money, which I wouldn't mind doing, but it's like I don't know how much longer I'll be able to stream. So I don't really want to buy streaming equipment if I won't be able to use it after a couple months. But I promise, if I ever find a miracle cure, I will be buying better streaming equipment. I'm glad this is a better view. Thanks for letting me know on that, by the way. We're almost done with this very noisy spindle. This particular spindle is extra noisy because there's a knot in the wood at the base that I'd never removed. Because it looks pretty and it doesn't affect it while spinning, but it does add a lot of noise when it's rolling around in a bowl while plying. So the next one should be quieter, hopefully. And here is the empty spindle. I'm really fond of this one. I learned I learned some new wood burning techniques when I made it, which you probably cannot see at all, given the quality of the video stream. And then immediately forgot them. So it's like a one of a kind, because I never got any farther with that. But we are really running out of spindle yarn. I'm really glad you like the streams as is. Thank you for saying so. I think it's easy for me to forget that perfect is the enemy of good, you know? Like sometimes I won't even attempt things because I'm like, well, it won't be perfect, which is simply not a good way to go about life. Come on. There we go. All right, we are on the second to last spindle, and the last spindle has almost nothing on it. So we may end up just chain plying, actually, the remainder. That would be a lot faster if I chain plied the remainder of the big bobbin. We might do that. We'll have to see. It really just depends on where we are by the time that we finish all the bobbins. Perfect, the enemy of good, the enemy of existing. Yep, exactly that. You know, when I first got into fiber arts in general, which in my case was knitting and crocheting, those were my first two. I found it very funny that everybody always talked about the idea of intentional mistakes, like, you know, leaving a mistake in so that the devil gets out was the one that I always heard. I thought that was hilarious. I was like, obviously people just don't want to fix their work. And then, you know, 10 years down the line, I'm at the point where I don't typically actually have mistakes in my projects. And now I'm so superstitious where I'm like, well, no, I do need to put a mistake in there because I've never made a mistakeless project and I am not about to start now. So like the intentional mistakes, the fact that you're removing the possibility of perfection purposefully, like that's a given that it won't be perfect. I find that to be really freeing. And I found that it's helped my work an awful lot. Especially because like the few things that I did that looked really beautiful and to anyone other than a fellow knitter or crocheter would be technically perfect. People always said they looked like they could have come from a store, which obviously if you make stuff yourself, you know how insulting that is to hear. And so it turns out in like intentionally introducing those little mistakes also can help with not getting those comments anymore. But honestly, I don't want to make something perfect. I'm not in the business of perfection. I'm in the business of finishing things, which are two very different businesses, at least to me. Now that's the end of the Jacob. Well, almost anyway. Let me just finish up this last little bit. So we are now at a conundrum. I think what I'm going to do, I've got this much left on this spindle, which is very little, although you probably can't tell. And then I've got a very small amount of extremely fine extremely fine CVM on this spindle. And I think I'm going to hold these two together until I run out of one, and then I will think about it further. Then I will come up with an additional plan. I don't know if now is a good time to disclose the fact that my drink is slightly alcoholic, as many good drinks are. I'm just in it to have a good time, you know. get it done and have fun. That's the idea. And it's already running away. Okay. Not cooperating. That's okay. You're very much still at the unintentional mistake part. Yeah, that part lasts a very long time. For me, like, I don't know, at least 5 years in every craft, it feels like 5 years of consistently doing that craft until I reach the part where I'm not making an unintentional mistake at least every project. And even then, I think it took 10 years of knitting for me to be able to produce technically perfect pieces and simply choose not to. And with spinning, I would not say that I have, like, I'm certainly not past the unintentional mistake part with spinning. In part, I think because spinning is, I don't know. I seem to perennially have this problem of I cannot remember what weight of yarn I was spinning, like moment to moment. I can't do it. And that's probably just because I have a memory disorder. So I think, like, just due to that, it's never going to be technically perfect. But I've been spinning for 8 years now, and I find my stuff chock full of mistakes constantly. Nothing is ever perfect, and that's fine. I'm perfectly fine with that. If it was perfect, I don't think it'd be as good. You know? What drink is it? It is just a hard cider. It's peach tea hard cider. It's got 8.4% alcohol content. It's not very alcoholic. It's sort of like a beer, I guess, except it doesn't taste disgusting. No offense to beer drinkers. I'm not a beer fan. It also doesn't taste like peaches or like tea at all, but it tastes fine though. Got no problem with it, except for the price. It was like $6. It's very expensive. Yeah. You have yarn you spun for your best friend since they crochet, but you feel like a cat bringing dead mice offering the yarn that you do. Oh. That's very relatable. That is incredibly relatable. I'm sure that your crochet friend deeply appreciates the yarn. Like, I mean, I'm sure you must know yourself. The difference between working with hand-spun yarn versus mill-spun yarn is immense. Mill-spun yarn is so lifeless compared to hand-spun yarn, and often kind of lacking in personality. Okay, so here's where we're at. So we have a tiny bit of this ultra thin stuff left, and we've got this much of the big bobbin left. So I think what I'm going to do is make a tiny ply bracelet, like just a little bit of a ply bracelet out of the big bobbin to use up what's left. That's never going to perfectly match up. That's really going to bother me. I think it's the only thing I can do though. Yeah. So I'm just going to cut this here and make just a tiny bit of a ply bracelet. The nice thing about the compression gloves is that I think I can like just sort of strap my yarn in and it shouldn't come out. We'll see. I'm curious. I don't think I've ever actually done a ply bracelet with a a cuff on before, so we'll have to see. The main question is whether or not it'll slide off or if it'll stick horrendously. Oh, but yeah, as I was saying, I'm almost positive that your crocheting friend really appreciates the hand spun yarn. It makes such a different product than mill spun yarn in a very good way, you know. I personally will always, I would like happily pick the most beginner of beginner hand spuns over a mill spun yarn pretty much any day and be very happy with my choice. Okay. We don't know if that's enough or not, but let's see. I did about this much. So very little. Objectively very little. And it actually did stay in place. The tail that I sort of strapped in totally stayed in place, so that's cool. Okay. All right. So now we're just gonna spin what's left on this tiny little spindle and what's left on my ply bracelet. And then when we finish up with both of those, I think we're just gonna chain ply the remainder of the bobbin. This is actually going a lot faster than I thought it would. Like, especially given all the times that I'm having to like move things around like this. It's going pretty well. Oof. Right. Okay. I am quickly learning that this snags on my cuff quite a bit. So I think I'm just going to take my compression cuff off very briefly. I don't think there's anything else I can do. All right. Gotta remind myself to put it back on as soon as I'm done with this. I don't know what the hell I did to my hands. Probably too much knitting. That's usually the culprit. But yeah, they're not happy. Yeah, that's way better. Oh, good. I'm glad that your crochet friend is also being verbally appreciative. That's always important when it comes to handmade gifts like that. I am like desperately wishing that I had a fiber prep friend, and I would take any prep, any at all, any skill level, if it meant that I didn't have to prep my own fiber anymore, because it's so painful at this point. So I'm like, I think I understand sort of both ways, you know, giving handmade stuff and also receiving handmade stuff. Special on both ends, you know. I always wondered, like, when it comes to medieval towns and other such situations where you would have, you know, a whole community of people constantly spinning, I always wondered if they gave each other gifts of yarn, if they ever made yarn for each other. Like, obviously, if everybody knows how to make yarn, then it's not It's not like you're doing something they don't know how to do. It's more like you're doing something for them, just for fun to be nice, right? And I've always wondered if they actually did that or not. So here's what we have remaining on this little spindle. It's impossible for me to show how fine it is, but it's finer than thread weight. And I think I'm just going to leave the remainder of it, and I will use it for another project because mostly because it really doesn't want to unwind. So it is time to attach this big bobbin and finish it up. Okay. Right, I also said I was going to put my compression glove back on. I should do that. You think they did, like people cook for each other, even though they know how to cook. Yeah, that is a very good comparison. I think you're right. I think you're definitely right. I bet that must have been nice. There have been a couple of times where I've given hand spun yarn to spinner friends, and actually more often where I've received hand spun yarn from spinner friends, because I will often trade with my friends for their scraps, because I have a hand spun scrap blanket that I've been working on for a very long time, and I always run out of scraps. So I've worked with and received so many hand spun scraps from my friends, and they're all so beloved to me. Like, I think I can pick out every single yarn in that scrap hand spun blanket that I have, which at this point is probably 200 or 300 different yarns. I think I remember almost every single one of them, meaning that I can also easily pick out the ones that my friends did, and those ones I love even more. It's really interesting, even when I don't remember spinning a yarn, because that does happen. Sometimes I spun it when I was very sick or something like that, and just not, like my brain was simply not registering memories. I can still tell if it's mine or not. Like, I can't tell which friends it is, but I can tell it's not mine. Just because, I guess, of little quirks of how I spin versus how everyone else spins. I don't know. Yeah. I definitely recommend a hand spun scrap blanket. If you ever have the inclination, because like I'll be working with, just balls of yarn that are minuscule, like maybe 10 meters, if that. And you can make a whole blanket out of odds and ends like that, and it is beautiful. Not that I finished it, but when I do finish it, it will be very beautiful. And so far, I'm really liking it. I haven't worked on it in a very long time. I've been sort of in a sock knitting and bag crocheting mania for the last several years. But nonetheless, eventually I will come back to my scrap hand spun blanket. I think it's going to be a really nice blanket. I hope I finish it. You have a style for spinning like an art. Yeah, that's probably true. That is probably true. Especially when it comes to like once you've worked on something long enough, I guess it's almost inevitable that you develop a style. just because there are always going to be certain little things that work really well for you that don't work well for others. And then you can easily pick those out. Things that you have an affinity to that not everyone else does, that sort of thing. For me, I know that my yarn is my yarn mostly because one length to the next length will be slightly different. While not having any slubs, it's just clearly like this guy does not remember what the fuck he's doing, which is accurate. That's an accurate assessment of the situation. And so I can always tell. Whereas my spinner friends, I have two spinner friends. One of them has been spinning for way longer than I have, about double the amount of time that I've been spinning. And the other one, I think, has been spinning either the same amount of time or maybe a little less. And then I also have a couple of spinning friends who are absolute newbies. And none of them have the problem that I do of the constant inconsistency. That is just me, which I've embraced at this point. I mean, I've certainly worked with it enough to know that it doesn't cause huge problems, but it is visually pretty distinct and kind of funny to me. Like, it's not like I'd go get myself badly concussed again so that I could like maintain this odd spinning habit, but I don't mind it. There are worse things to result from bad concussions, that's for sure. It's true. I never have enough bags, and I make bags constantly. The problem is that I make a bag, and then I'm like, ooh, I could put my fleece in that. And then I put my fleece in that, and then I don't have a bag I can use anymore. So I'm literally constantly making bags. I probably make like 3 bags a month. And nonetheless, I am always scrambling for grocery bags. So that's fine. It's very nice to display your fleece in hand-spun bags, I will say that. I thought this would be a lot harder to chain ply than it is, because it's quite inconsistent, like I said, and there's lots of little slubs, which are not my fault. They're because of the prep. But it's actually cooperating pretty nicely, which I do appreciate. And then I need more fleeces to make more bags. Yeah, yeah, you are understanding the maze of fleece buying and bag making that I have trapped myself in for the past 5 years. Yes, pretty much. I do often make cotton bags just with like the cheap like dishcloth cotton stuff that Michaels sells. I've made quite a few bags with that because it actually is pretty damn strong and pretty resilient, and it makes a good bag, but it's not very interesting to work with. So I will always prefer my hand spun if I can. And then I'm like, oh, I need to spin more, so I need more fleeces. And then when I spin more, I make more bags, and then I need to spin more and get more fleeces again. Yeah. It's one of those hobbies that's like, I feel like it's like keeping rabbits. Like you look away, you have 2 rabbits, you look away and you have 60 rabbits. And it's like, how the hell did that happen? Like, how did I get 58 more rabbits without even knowing it? They just appeared here. How did that happen? That's been my experience, at least. The end is in sight. We're reaching the, not quite the dregs of the the very last big bobbin, but we're at the point where we're definitely on the first whorl. That's what I call it. I have no idea what the actual terminology is, but like the first go around, you know, where you're just covering up all the empty spots so that your yarn doesn't slide around like crazy. We're at that spot now. So we are almost done. I think I'm gonna count the yardage on the stream, unless you guys aren't interested, which is fair. But I was thinking I might just idly treadle so we get the nice noise and then count, because that part's going to be totally silent and not visually, not something you can see given the incredible graininess of my webcam. So I might just do a bit of random treadling just for the fun of it while I count so that I can deliver a yardage estimate. Because I'm quite curious myself. And to be honest, if I don't count it now, I will probably never count it. And I'll just make something with it and be like, it's, I don't know, it was an amount. So that's probably what I'll do. You're all for yardage. Sweet. Yep. I will do that then. It's true, you can spin rabbit. One of my coworkers actually has 2 rabbits, and they have been collecting their fur for me. One of the rabbits has very beautiful, soft, spinnable fur, and the other one is, I think it is probably spinnable. I haven't been able to work with them separately yet. I think they're both probably spinnable, but the second one is very coarse. But the first one, like, man, when my coworker gives me a big bag of that, I'm gonna be a very happy guy. The funny thing is, me talking to that coworker about spinning their rabbit's fur has led another one of my coworkers to be like, could you spin dog fur? And I'm like, well, it is possible. I've never tried it because I don't have a dog, but I know other people have. So yeah, probably. And then 2 other of my coworkers were like, well, could you spin my dog's fur? And to be fair, I only agreed to spinning the initial coworker's dog's fur because it was a husky. And I was like, I know for a fact that you can spin husky fur, especially like the downy part. I know you can do that. So I agreed to spin that. And then one of my other coworkers who has just like a mutt of some kind, no particular breed, has delivered to me a small amount of her dog's fur. And that stuff is actually really nice and soft. And I'm like, I could probably spin this too. And so now I am inundated with the fur of all of my coworkers to spin with, which is sort of the opposite of a problem. I'm not a huge fan of dogs in real life because I do not like sudden noises and they do not like my power chair. But fiber is fiber, so I really don't care what I'm spinning. I just like trying new stuff. So that part really doesn't matter to me. Yeah, it's funny. I've literally all of my coworkers who have pets are collecting their pets' fur to see if I can spin it now. So much dog fur. Yep. Yes, indeed. Very last little bit of this. I'll have to take a picture in the daylight and once it's washed and dried, because I imagine it's going to look very different, and also because there is no way you can actually see what it looks like on my webcam. So check my Tumblr in the morning or maybe the next day. I have noticed for some reason that it's putting like mature labels on all my stuff recently. like I posted a picture of some socks that I finished knitting, and it's like this has been flagged for mature content. Like my feet aren't even in it. That's the only thing I can imagine it would care about, and they're not even in it. So I don't know what it's on, but anyway, yeah. I will post a picture of all of this on my Tumblr once it's all washed and dried. But wow, we're done. I just have to lock it on and then count the yardage. And also drink more. Okay. All right. Why did I get that first? So here is that bobbin plied, by the way. It's definitely uneven, and it's also definitely a nice yarn. So I think that's a fine trade-off for me. Okay. All right, I did say I would do a bit of treadling. I'll do that as soon as I've attached the yarns, though. Because that's kind of difficult. Don't mind me just spit felting some very dusty yarn. Wow, there's literally mud on my hands. Wow. Yeah, I'm very curious what this will be like washed. I think it'll be a lot nicer. It's already pretty nice, so. Alright. Guess I'll treadle when I'm actually counting, not just while I'm winding. It's pretty kinked up. Due to the fact that I typically do not let my yarn rest any period of time at all. I like working while it's still active. I just feel like I get better results that way. And that's also how I've always done it, so that's probably is why I get better results that way. But yeah, due to the fact that that is not what I did this time, there was a full month gap in between all of this and me trying it. I'm kind of worried I over twisted it. I think if I really over twisted it, it wouldn't be soft anymore, and it is still soft, so it can't be that bad. But I wonder if when I wash it, it's gonna sort of crinkle up. We'll see. I'm curious. It's definitely kinking up a lot as I'm just like winding it on. More than normal, which is okay. I don't know. We'll see. Like, I don't know. My cat will lay on anything, for one thing. And two, if it's durable, that probably just means it'll withstand her claws for a little bit longer. So it's probably fine, even if it is really overspun, but I don't think it is. I think it's just a little overspun. Or overplied, rather. Those are different things. I'm very, well, I feel like as soon as I say this, I'm going to jinx this, but I'm very glad that I've gotten through this without getting any splinters, because that is not a given. in a yarn that has as much VM as this one does. I remember one of the first fleeces I bought was this beautiful double A fleece. Double A being a cross between Rambouillet and I think Dorset. I think. Don't quote me on that last one. I know it's Rambouillet and something. And it's like a very buttery, beautiful, incredibly soft fiber. But the shepherd did not jacket it, and it was just full of thistles. And I got so many splinters working with it that I literally just had to give up so that I could still use my hands. It was so sad. And ever since then, I've learned that there is, like, if you find a fine wool breed selling for less than like $30 a pound, it's because it's full of VM and you should not buy it. That is what I learned. All right, we made it to the end. We did it. I'm going to tie this off, count it, and give some nice treadling noises to close out the evening, I think. Tying it is taking longer than I thought. I just broke it. That's fine. It should stay. All right. Counting time. I will be quiet for a minute now. All right. It is 113 strands, which means 226 yards, which is pretty good. I think that's more than I thought I'd get. 226 yards of 3-ply is nothing to sneeze at, although I did forget. Sorry about that. I did forget to tie off the other end. So let me do that real quick. And it's definitely kinking up a lot. I don't know if that's just because it's been rested so long. Like, I don't have a frame of reference really, but look at that though. Very pretty. Make it into a little skein real quick. See what it looks like. It's very oily, it's very dusty still. And I think it's gonna bloom and get quite a bit, what's the word? Thicker, I guess, when I wash it, I think. That's my prediction. But yeah, look at that. very pleased. Thank you. 206 meters. Good to know. Thank you. I'm not good at those, like, I can do a broad yard to meter conversion, but when it comes to specifics, I just know the yards are slightly bigger and that's it. So 206 meters, that's not bad. I'm pretty pleased with that. Chuck, what do you think? This is your yarn? She doesn't care. She's like, I'm drinking water, go away. All right. Well, this has been a great stream. Definitely, I'll post a finished picture of the yarn on Tumblr if you want to check that out. Probably either tomorrow or the day after, depending on how long it takes to dry. That's really the deciding factor. And then I might try a stream with my e-spinner. The only thing is, I know my e-spinner does not make a very nice noise. And I also, like, it's not very interesting to watch either. So it'd sort of just be me chatting and spinning in a way that is not visually interesting at all. So I don't know if I will do that. If not, maybe I'll just start spinning something else. My goal is to sort of get through as much of the wool that I have as possible, no matter what I turn it into. So we'll see. We will see. Thank you for staying, etc. Thanks for all the comments. You make it a lot easier to stream with the questions and the comments. I really appreciate it. Yeah, it's been a great stream. I have missed streaming quite a bit, actually. Oh, you'd be interested just for seeing what an e-spinner is like. That's good to know. I can definitely do that then, because I can talk about the pros and cons of e-spinners for a stream for sure. So I think I will do that to finish up my South Down and Flax spin that's been on my e-spinner for about a year now. So I'll do my usual thing of posting when I say I can do it. All right. Yeah. Thanks for being here. I hope you have a good night or day, whatever time it is for you. It's night for me, so good night.